So, first of all, we'll just get started. If you could just begin by telling me a little bit about you, where
Okay.
you're from, tell me a little about your family, those kind of things.
Okay. Well, I was originally born in Chicago, Illinois, and I grew up in Chicago and the surrounding suburbs. And then when I left, I went to Peoria, Illinois to attend Bradley University. And from there, I went to graduate school in East Lansing at Michigan State University, the MSU, by the way. And I did my master's degree there and my PhD in economics. And in order to pay the bills, I became a part-time employee of the state of Michigan. And I worked there in the Office of Management and Budget for about 3 years or 4 years, actually, after I finished my degree. And while I was doing it, that was how we paid the grocery bill. And in the process of working for that office, I was asked to give a presentation to the National Association of Budget Officers who were meeting in Madison, Wisconsin about zero-based budgeting and performance-based budgeting, which we were implementing in the state at that time. And there was a person in the audience from the University of Missouri, and he was there attending the conference, but he was also there recruiting. They needed to have someone to be the director of a new unit that had been established on campus, the State and Regional Fiscal Studies Unit. I guess I must have performed fairly well. They asked me to come down and interview. I came down and interviewed, and I stayed in that job for 30 years.
Wow. Wow. So you're not a native of Missouri, just by
No,
turn
I'm
of
not.
events, you ended up here.
Just by turn of event.
All right. So, getting into the office you're running for now, 25th District, you've decided to run for...
24th.
24th? Is that what it is?
24th.
That's what I said. Okay, maybe not. 24th District. But you've decided to run again. So why? Why do you want to hold the seat again?
Well, there's a lot of things that we haven't accomplished, and I had, my background is economics, and when I ran for office the first time, there were several things dealing with taxation and the budget issues in the state that I had been an advisor to when I was at the university. I was an advisor for 30 years to the legislature on matters of budget and taxation. But it's very difficult for an advisor to really have an impact. And because, once you tell them what you think they should do, they can leave the room and do whatever they want to do. So I just decided that it would be, I might have more influence if I was actually a member of the body. So that's why I ran in 2004 and 2006, and that's why I'm running again. Missouri has some structural problems with its tax structure that we need to address, for sure. We need to change some taxes around significantly. The income tax is one, the corporate income tax is another. And we still have some ongoing budgetary issues that the state needs to address. And the other reason I wanted to run for the legislature is I thought it was time that they had a very strong advocate for higher education down there who actually had a background in it, so I could speak from experience. As I was director of 3 research centers here, and so we did approximately $8 million in grants and contracts while I was the director of those units. We hired lots of students and graduate students, and I have an intimate knowledge of all the university red tape dealing with grants and contracts and all the paperwork that's associated with that. So I think I bring a much different perspective to the discussions about education in general and higher education in particular than anybody else in the state legislature. So the last time I looked, I'm the only ex-college professor down there. So.
Okay. Do you have a short to-do list then, in addition to this? Is a short to-do list if you are reelected, things that you see that we need to get done right now?
Well, I have one issue in particular that I think we absolutely have to get done this year, and I'm a big supporter of gifted education. Children who are gifted are no different than children who have other types of learning disabilities, and they need special care and they need special attention. And unfortunately, in 2005, when we rewrote the current funding plan, we did something very bad for gifted programs in the state, and we need to undo it. So we started that process last year. Other representatives besides me who are interested in K-12 education tried to get some legislation through that would change the funding formula. We decided not to, given the fact that there's still a pending lawsuit, given the from the school districts. They appealed the judge's ruling. Jeff City. So hopefully that case will be decided, and hopefully before we get into the legislative session, that appeal will be taken care of. Then we can go back in and unfortunately open that can of worms that is the that formula, that mystical formula that allocates money to all 524 school districts. And in the process of doing that, there's about two fixes we really need to make. One of them is the gifted program. We have school districts now who receive money for gifted programs that don't offer it. And I noticed gifted is like, a lot of school districts don't see it as being essential, which is a real, I think, mistake on their part. And if you look at the Columbia Public School District, they had some budgetary problem. Most of it was of their own doing, but when in doubt, look around to see where you can make cuts. And I think they made some terrible decisions there, and one of the decisions that they made was to reduce the staffing and gifted programs. And in a community like this, where education is king, that's what I thought was just an unfortunate decision, to say the least.
Okay. What would you say are some of the biggest accomplishments you've had?
Well, there's a lot of things that we've been able to get done. In terms of higher education, here we are saying that the rebuilding at the flagship campus of the state. Unfortunately, higher education has, for many years, been looked at as a sort of a reservoir of funds that the state can tap into if they have any fiscal problems. And that happened in 2002, and happened again in 2003, in those legislative sessions. And in 2002, the state reduced direct funding for higher education by $97 million, and they reduced it further the next year by $30 million. And that obviously had some very dire consequences for higher education institutions in the state, but probably more importantly for the students who attend those. And that's put a lot of additional pressure on the universities of the state to increase their tuition. And we needed to do something about it. One of the things we did was unfortunate. In Senate Bill 389, we put a cap on how much tuition could rise. That was a mistake. We need to go back and take that off at some point. We probably won't have to worry about it because I don't think it will become effective this coming year, but in the next 2 years for sure we need to remove that. But in the meantime, because of I think the priorities not only of Matt Long, but I think the legislative leaders in both the House and the Senate, we've been able to restore $107 million of the cuts. We're scheduled to put an additional $35 million into direct aid to universities this next year, which will get us to the highest level of funding in history. It's not where it needs to be. We need to put more money in, but it's given the financial circumstances that the state has gone through the last several years, I think it's a very good start. The other thing I'm very proud of, I'm an economist, I'm a free market type person, and the other thing I think that we've done that is very good for not only all of the universities in the state, but particularly this one and the students, is we've been able to put almost $75 million into an expanded scholarship program. And I'm a firm believer that parents and students are not only aware but wise as to how they can allocate those funds. And so these are need-based scholarships. A lot of people disagree with the fact that some of them go to private schools and some of them go to public schools. I look at it this way. If this is one of the two outstanding universities in the state, and we know that it is, and we know the other one is, but we can't mention its name because it's in St. Louis and it's private. But we know that's the case. And I believe firmly that the free market system will ensure that when students are making a choice between alternative campuses across the state, that given the reputation and the excellence of this particular campus, this is where they'll decide to spend their money. And the last time I looked, there were 3,000 additional students using the Access Scholarship that are attending the University of Missouri. And I know everybody says the increased enrollment is in some part due to the success of our football team. But I don't think we can overlook the fact that we made all those additional dollars available. And those dollars in conjunction with other scholarships and other types of aid programs, I think, allow students who perhaps may have thought they couldn't have afforded the University of Columbia the opportunity to attend there. So I think it's, those programs alone, I think, and we're all worth the stress and strain